Hey, Laura, welcome to the Retail Whore podcast.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
I am so excited to talk to you. We met at the UPP conference, and what I've loved right now that I'm starting to bring on from all these amazing entrepreneurs that I met at the UPP thing is it's a whole other level that I feel like retailers need. You are a business coach. You work with people and they're building their teams. And I think that's invaluable, especially because I think so many retailers, when it comes to your employees and getting everybody motivated and going in the right direction, I think that a lot of retailers don't have the tools to do it. So I'm excited to dig in and talk to you about what you do.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. And it's so true. It's like your team is such a key component of your business. But, when it comes to the thing that you're really great at, the thing that kind of got you started, it's often not that side of things. So sometimes you just need help to, put all that stuff in place.
So I tell everybody first right now what you do, and tell her like you are building a brand, and you are still with a company doing kind of what you're doing now, correct?
Exactly. So I have a day job. I still have the 9 to 5. I currently am a marketing director. I sit on the leadership team for a software company that serves the independent lodging industry, which I absolutely love. I've worked in hospitality for a while. However, one of the things that I miss about my role now in marketing is the ability to work with potential clients and existing clients on helping them learn to love their businesses again, figure out how to grow, how to scale, how to overcome roadblocks. And so I started my own brand, Laura McDowell Creative, and I'm actually in the process of getting my certification to become a professional EOS implementer. And EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. It's a set of tools and processes that are proven. They are things that have been around forever that plenty of other businesses have used. It's just the way they're put together. They're designed to help you strengthen your business from the inside out and really just run a better business. So
I've never heard of the EOS system. And it's like, I don't know why. I don't know if it's because retail doesn't have some, or no one in retail utilizes something like that. But how did you find out about this program, and what are the qualifications to take it? I mean, do tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had not heard of it either until, gosh, about probably 8 months ago or so. The company that I work for still by day, I started when we were a startup. I was the third employee hired, and we've grown and scaled over the past 6 years and got to a point where we were struggling. We were, so to speak, hitting the ceiling with growth, with figuring out how to continue innovating for our clients. It was like we kind of hit this wall. And thankfully, we ran into another business owner with a similar type of business in a different industry who said, you have to read this book, Traction. And so our leadership team decided, all right, we'll read it. We'll see what this guy's talking about. And he had implemented this process through his business about 3 years prior, saw crazy change, and was like, you got to at least give it a try. So we did. We read the book as a team. We came back together. We decided we're going to give this a shot. And ultimately, we brought on a professional implementer to help us with it. And the shift I've seen in our team since probably November of this year has been incredible. It really truly works. And like seeing it from the inside with my own two eyes, sitting there in meetings with our implementer and realizing this is what I want. I want to be this person in this room with the leadership team of a company that's struggling, that really wants to love their business again, really wants to grow and succeed and provide for their team and their clients. That's what I want to be able to do. And understanding that these are tools and processes, like I said, that they're not these like spammy, like made up things. They're real, true things that people have used successfully. It just felt like a really great framework. I could wrap my head around it. So I started looking into what that looks like. It's actually a franchise. So I've purchased into the franchise and I'm rolling it into my personal brand. So I'll still be able to do everything I already do, as well as offer EOS as a professional implementer. So
I have so many questions right now because okay, so when you say your business that you're in right now and people were hitting a wall and weren't sure on how to keep creative flow, keep things moving on, like when you say that, is the block more creative block, or we're all burnt out, we don't know, everyone's kind of burnt out and going in different directions? And is like, what does that look like? Just so I can get a picture, because there's a lot of retailers, I have a feeling, that are going through that, if I'm correct in what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think it can present itself in different ways, but I would say some of the things that we experienced and that I know are common for businesses that ultimately wind up implementing EOS is that our leadership team, our departments became extremely siloed. So like I said, I started out pretty early on in the company, and we sort of just developed the roles that the business needed. And I went from kind of customer success and helping new customers get set up to sales, and then eventually started the marketing division. And it just got to a point where we realized, like, our development team, our HR people, our sales people, our success people, and marketing were just not, we just weren't interacting with each other enough. We really weren't on the same page with what anyone else was doing. And it was a struggle. We're also a fully remote team. So that's going to be obviously a difference for your retailers that are in physical spaces. But that was, kind of more unique for us being a remote company, that doesn't help because we don't see each other physically unless we're specifically scheduling meetings and things like that. So communication had been really tough. Feeling like we didn't know what each other was doing, feeling like we weren't really setting strategic goals for the business. What are the longer range goals we want? What do we want to become? We were still trying to be everything to everyone in our space versus really niching down. And I think it really took that sort of third party perspective for all of us to say, oh my gosh, we're not unique. We're not these like special people going through these unique problems. Like, these problems exist. I think honestly, most small businesses that ultimately succeed and grow are going to go through these phases. And it's how you decide to acknowledge them and what you decide to do about them. What you're able to recognize in yourself and how you might be part of the problem
Oh,
is
yeah.
what really helps us kind of get to that next level. It's like very humbling, but really like sort of magical when it starts to all work.
I can think of just in companies that I've worked for that are no longer. One of them was I worked for guys that decided they wanted to create the store. We created one, it had great success, and then they got all ego crazy and like, let's open 4 more. I'm like, who does, like, you just don't do that in retail. Like, nobody does, unless you have like, we didn't even have operations tied in. Like, they were literally just winging it. And now we're opening 4 more. And literally it's like 5 stores now are in motion. We have operations. We have 3 owners who are not involved in it at all. They're sitting in their offices. Myself and the operations director are the ones basically working. Nobody was talking to each other. Yep. And it's like, I think about how many that I know we weren't alone in that, but right. I think though communication, like if your system works on that alone, I think is invaluable, because truly, like, the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. And then people start getting pissed off at each other. Like, why didn't you tell me? It's like, well, I tried to have a meeting with you. And then everyone's ego gets involved because,
Yeah.
So what do you do, like, in a situation like that, or people, like, especially where communication, like, how do you, you as a coach, how do you take people, what's the first piece of advice you give to people when it comes to communication, especially?
Yeah, I think I was actually going to say, I think it's interesting because I think there is a parallel between retail and a remote work environment, because you have people working different shifts and sort of passing each other in the night, especially like management. How often in a retail situation are you going to have 2 members of your leadership team at the same time in the same place, right? You're tending to sort of spread them out and fill all of your business hours and your shifts. So it's really not that crazy. Like, our team, we're spread out across time zones as well. So not only are we not physically together, but for some of us, there's only a few hours in a day where our shifts even cross. Wow. So I think one of the components, so with EOS, it's really 6 key components of your business that every business has. So there's the vision component, the people component, your processes, your data, and your issues. I missed one, and your traction. Okay. And so people tend to be one of the bigger problems, right? We often don't necessarily want to think of the individuals as the issue, but because of the complexity of every individual person that's on your team, that can often lead to a lot of the issues, especially if one person values a certain type of communication over another. And so that can tend to be a big conflict. But I think in a situation like this, something that would be really beneficial is around the processes side of the business. And with EOS, it's pretty straightforward. The processes side really says having the right processes in place so that things get done the same time and the best time every single time, and having them documented so that when you have people that aren't necessarily in the same room together, you don't have this sort of like confusion about how some of the most important things of the business, need to be taken care of. And that can include communication. It's not just about the other processes that you need to take care of to run your business. So
like, again, like retail, like you said, there was management and then there's the rest of the team. I mean, there's so many tiers of management in retail, from the top management to assistant to third key to, everything else. But and you're right, no one really works on the floor at the same time. So, for well-run companies like in Anthropologie, there is a system of communication and an email every day, and you have to sign off and whatnot. But I don't think a lot of small retailers, or, even large multiple store owners, like, have that kind of communication. And that's always seems to be one of the biggest thing, is somebody has left out. And again, like, egos get in the way of, like, why did she get to say that, or whatever it is.
right. And it's tough because for me personally, communication is one of the biggest things. It's actually really funny. Like, quick side story, last year we did a virtual holiday party, and one of the activities that we did was we broke into teams and we had to come up with all these adjectives to describe other teams. So it was like we broke up into a team and then we were assigned a different group of like 6 people. And it was like, great, come up with adjectives that you think like the great characteristics of this group of 6 of your coworkers. And then after we did that, we were told we had to write a superhero story in which those people had these superpowers that they used. Okay. So we had to come up with this story. And this is like type of stuff I absolutely love. But it was really funny because then we all came together afterward and one person from each team read the story to the rest of the company. And my superpower was crystal clear for communication. And it was just so funny to me to realize how much I make it very well known that this is always my point of frustration, that this is what they decided was my superhero power. So it was very funny, but I was like, well, at least you guys know when I complain about it, you're aware that that is going to be the thing that drives me crazy. So yeah.
So you are now building your own brand, and you're going to launch, you are doing some of it now, correct?
I am, yes. Yep.
So tell us a little bit about what you do with your clients. Like say I am a brand new retailer, or a retailer that has had stores for a few years. We are not really all on the same page. We're looking for coaching for both how to get my employees on the same line that I'm in. So we all have the same goal, which is obviously for the store to succeed, sales to exceed our sales goals, et cetera. Tell me a little bit about how it works with you, signing you on as a coach for a business.
Yeah. So when it comes to working with me, especially if you're interested in the EOS side of things, the first thing that I would do is I would encourage you and your team to read the book Traction. I know that seems kind of like we're, dragging out the process, but Traction, it's the author is Gino Wickman. He's the creator of EOS. Traction is, sorry?
Gino Wickman?
Gino, Gino Wickman. Yeah. He is the creator of EOS, and the book is such a fantastic overview of the process. And I think it's the type of thing where if you have an existing leadership team, that you've already got kind of a defined group of people that you think of as your core team, I would suggest having everyone read it and getting a feel for whether it's something that just kind of like resonates with you. Do you read it and go, oh my gosh, like this makes sense. Like we're not necessarily doing these things right now, but I can see where if we did this, it would help us. Or maybe you read it and you're like, oh no, like this is not our cup of tea. Like this is not going to work for us. We're already like feeling like, no, thank you. Then great. Like it's definitely not for everybody. But from there, what I would do is I would schedule what's called the 90-minute meeting with you. And it's literally a 90-minute meeting where I would meet with your leadership team to give you a very comprehensive overview of what it looks like. What are the tools that we use? How do they get used? How do we strengthen those 6 key components of your business? And then what does the process look like for implementation? So we start with a few sessions that are about 30 days apart to just get you going and get you implemented. And then from there, it's quarterly meetings. So I would act as sort of a guide, a coach, a facilitator to educate everyone about the processes and then help you get yourself set up with a really clear vision so that everybody's on the same page. You can all close your eyes and picture what the business is going to look like in 10 years, in 3 years, in 1 year. And then we break those goals down into quarterly goals and milestones to get you there. So it's all extremely tangible. And it's really just about clarifying and making it, again, so everyone's on the same page. The way EOS starts is we start at your leadership team level. So I would work directly with your leadership team, but then we get to a point where all of your leaders are going to start rolling it out to the rest of the team. And the goal is to have everybody on the team on the same page with where you're going, really clear about what their role is in that and in getting to those bigger goals. And having, I think one of my favorite things about it is accountability and transparency. Everyone knows who's responsible for what, and everyone holds each other accountable to actually accomplish those things.
Oh my God, just that alone.
I know. And you mentioned egos before. And I think that that's one of the biggest things with it is it helps you kind of remove your ego from the situation, because it becomes less about, Laura, did you get XYZ done? And more about, hey, like this was the thing that you were accountable for the big goal for the quarter. How are you doing? Are you on track with that still? And if you're not, what can we do to help you, either as our individual marketing team or as at the leadership team level, depending on what it is. And it just gives everybody just so much more visibility. So there's less of that, like, what's so-and-so doing? Why are they not here? Why is this happening? Oh my gosh. It's like, it's life-changing. Honestly. I know it sounds so cheesy.
The first thing I thought of is that it doesn't make it all about, this is my project. It becomes like, as a company, like how, just what you said, how can we help you? And I think, I know I have several people I work with that, people have their jobs and no one checks in to see like, hey, I'm just following up. How are you? I mean, I follow up like a crazy person. Like, I'm sure like people are like, I got it. Like,
yep.
But communication to me is like huge. And this is part of communication, but also the accountability factor, but accountability for everybody as a team. Like if that person fails, you are also sort of failing. I mean, how I see it when it comes to like, if you're the team leader, if your poor Susie Q is falling behind because she either doesn't understand it or she's overwhelmed or whatever, and no one checks in on her, and then it's like the day before it's due and now she has a meltdown, it's like that's partially on you as well, I feel like, as a team leader, correct?
100%. And I don't know how deep to get into all of this because I am just like so passionate about it. And every time you bring something else, I'm like, there's a way, there's a solution for that. So one of the other things that really transformed our team is the fact that EOS has a meeting agenda. It's called the L10. It stands for level 10. And it literally means we're going to rate every meeting on a scale of 1 to 10. And our goal is for every meeting to get a 10, right? We know it's not going to happen, but that's the goal. And so there's a very strict agenda that you follow every time. We have a weekly leadership meeting. It's 90 minutes. I know that sounds crazy. Prior to doing EOS, our leadership team would meet like 3 times a year as a total group.
Exactly. So that's
really like
I have to say it, 90 minutes is not, because honestly, like you're not going to cover a lot of things in these 10-minute meetings. Like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And 5 minutes of it is like catching up with what, like 90 minutes is not, personally, I don't think that's out of control.
It's not at all. And because of the strict agenda, everyone knows what to expect. So it's like, and the first 5 minutes is the segue. We literally get in this meeting. There are 7 of us on the leadership team. And the first 5 minutes are literally like, share a positive professional and personal thing that's happened to you in the past week. And again, it sounds kind of like silly, and we're so busy and we are trying to hit these goals and do all these things and get so much done. But like, sometimes it's really nice to just sit down and like recognize that we're all human beings with like other things going on in our lives. And it gives us that chance to sort of transition from whatever the heck thing we just walked out of into, hey, we're here. This is our like kind of like sacred time together to work on this business. And so we're going to do this. Then we talk about headlines. What are the most important things that have happened to any of us, our departments, our teams over the course of the week? We talk about our to-dos. So one of the really cool things too is that every week you get the opportunity to set essentially week-long tasks. What is something that needs to get done over the next week? I'm going to take responsibility for. They don't always happen, but generally speaking, most people walk away from each meeting with something that's really a quicker short-term turnaround thing. We check in on those. Did you get that done or not? And then we move on to our rocks, which are, like I said, those are those 90-day goals. So right now we're in the middle of working towards our rocks for this quarter. Is it on track or is it off track? And then finally, the best part of the meeting is what's called the IDS. This is the issues part of the meeting. IDS stands for identify, discuss, and solve. And it's all about the issues in your business.
Oh.
What it does is it literally creates a physical space for people on your team anytime in the week to go in and add an issue to the list. Okay. We want to make sure that at the leadership level, you're focused on issues that are really required of the leadership team and not something that can be talked about between two different leaders offline, or maybe it's more departmental. But this gives us the opportunity every week we sit down and we have those issues sitting there. And it could be that a rock is off track. It could be something that came up in the headlines, whatever. But we have our issues list. These are the things that we have decided are the most important things that we need to be discussing together as a team. And we take time to figure out what are the top three right now. What are the three most important on this list? We put them in order and we just get started. Issue one, what is it? What's the root issue that we're really dealing with? It's really important to discuss the root issue and not whatever the symptom is or whatever we think it might be and rush to solve it. Once we identify that, we discuss, we solve. Usually a to-do comes out of that and it gets checked off the list. And the idea with that is that most businesses, most entrepreneurial businesses are dealing with like the same issues over and over and over again. And we're just never taking the time to dig deep and solve them. We're putting a Band-Aid on it. We're looking for the fastest thing. And it's not easy. It's not an easy process. We are still working at it every week to really kind of keep each other on track. But when you get something solved and you go, gosh, like we've legitimately solved this and it's not going to come up again, it's like a weight off of everybody's shoulders.
And this is not a bitch fest, right? Like when you say
no,
that's it. It's like, that's what happens a lot in retail meetings. Like everyone gets together and like, I know one of my stores got everybody together and it's, you know, with teams in general, especially when you're dealing in retail, but with teams in general, there always is like the little core group that sticks together. And like my old boss used to say, don't get involved in all of that conversation because it's like cancer. It's just going to feed. So one person starts talking about like, oh, the manager, da, 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 and it's like this little gossipy, cliquey group.
The drama.
And then you get into a meeting and then it's like someone brings something up and then it's like, it's literally like being ganged up on because this little crew. So this meeting is not a bitch fest. This is legitimate issues that are to push the business forward.
Exactly. And it takes the entire team being on the same page. I think that's one of the things that I'll say. And I kind of said earlier, you know, it's not, this process isn't for everyone. And at sometimes it could be the right process for your business, but you might not be in the right place right now to start it. There is a lot of, I think, tough conversations that need to happen, especially when you're first getting started with it, in order to make sure that you've got the right people on your leadership team, that you have a kind of a tight leadership team. You don't just have every single person who, you know, has been at the company over 3 years is a manager. Like that's not what this is supposed to be. Because I know that happens. It really has to be a core team. You have to be willing to, you know, potentially make people upset and make sure you've got the right group of people in there in that room. And then as you're going through it every single week, we have guys, I think we're going a little down a rabbit hole, or guys, I don't know that we've really gotten the root cause here. And it's okay. Because again, this is that accountability and the transparency that I mentioned. we've given ourselves permission to say, hey, if I start going off track, someone else is going to bring me back, because we're human. Like, yes, we get used to that sort of like complaining, going down the rabbit hole, looking for some weird solution to something that's not the real problem. It's going to happen, but it's about getting more and more comfortable with each other and remembering like why we're doing this. And it's almost like every week someone else takes the role of like, hey guys, let's get ourselves back on track. And then at the end, we rate the meeting. So like I said, the L10, we all each give it a rating from 1 to 10. And then we give a quick review of why we gave it that. And, and just strive to do better the next week. So if anything is kind of off, but yeah, it's not a bitch fest. It's not, where we complain about things. It's truly about what this, again, sacred time, like the 6 people in this room are probably your highest paid people. There are probably a lot of other things they could be doing right now. So what are we going to do to make the most of this time that we have together?
Yeah, I think that's a big hurdle for a lot of retailers, because no one, your store is open from a lot of places like 7 till, sometimes 9 or 10 or 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And it's, you're like, we don't have time for that, but I guarantee you, in listening to what this does to create a team with a one common goal, I think that is what the brilliant part of this, because I think honestly, like, there's not a lot of companies that everybody's on the same page, because retail, it's a lot of temporary people. It's not, and you're right. So one of the questions I would say is like the hard conversations about with management team, like what does that look like?
Yeah. So the people component of EOS, this is one of my favorite parts, is about having the right people in the right seats. And it's kind of 2 different pieces, but you have to have both. So you might have people on your team that you absolutely love. You love working with them. They've been around a while. I don't know, but they're not in the right seat, right? Like they're just not, maybe they don't really fully understand the role they're in. Maybe they're just not really that great at it. They're not hitting their numbers or whatever their goals are. Maybe they don't even really want it. Maybe they kind of got moved into this position because there was a space and you needed to fill it. Who knows? But they're a great fit for your culture. The other side of that is the right seat. Is the right people. You might have people that are really, really great at their jobs. They're pros at it. They always hit their numbers, but they are not a good fit culturally. And they're like that whole, like that cliche, like one bad apple spoils the bunch. We all know we have that person. And until you have every single seat on your team is filled with a right person in the right seat, something is always going to be off. And so if you have a right person, wrong seat, that could be a really hard conversation, because personally, you don't want them to leave. But if you don't have a better seat to put them in, maybe you do, but if you don't, then keeping them is like, it's just, you're kind of just draining your resources. And then on the other side, if you've got a bad culture fit, you got to go. We do find that a lot of times once EOS starts becoming rolled out throughout the team, that people will sort of self-select themselves out. They realize they're not a good fit for the culture. But how long do you want to wait for that? So I think it's kind of being able to be comfortable realizing like it's going to be tough. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So
I think a lot of people, well, especially now, I mean, right now, I think the number one problem two problems retailers are having: supply chain and finding good people that, and that is a whole other question, but it's like, retailers, I think right now are hanging on to whoever they have, because it's a body that,
true.
For if you have like 5 stores and you have just enough people to cover those hours and somebody calls out, now the owner's like having to go like find somebody or go in ourselves, or worst case scenario, the doors don't open that day. So I think a lot of people are like, I know they suck. I'll admit, I'm the first person to say it. This person sucks, but I don't have anybody else. What is something you could say to that? Because I think that every single retailer knows that problem. And I think every single retailer has one, if not more, of those employees. Like, is there a way of saving those employees? Is there a way of saving that relationship and getting everybody kind of back on the right track?
Yeah, I think obviously it's not foolproof, but I do think there are definitely things that you can do to help. And honestly, with my current industry, hospitality, our clients are going through the same thing. Like one of their biggest, they're actually busier than ever
I
with
know.
travel booming now, but they are seriously struggling for help. So I think when it comes to the people component, using this time where, and I know this sounds so ridiculous because you're like, I don't have time, like I'm underwater as it is. But if you're able to start thinking about what is your ideal, what are your core values? What are the ideal characteristics that you want in a person? And this, yes, you want people that maybe have experience in certain areas and you have these specialized roles that you're like, I need someone better in this and they need to have XYZ. But I think in a lot of cases, we maybe put almost like too much pressure on specific qualifications, whereas we could look more to the the personal characteristics and the core value qualities of people. And that kind of opens up our candidate pool a little bit. And those are the things that at the end of the day, you cannot teach. I think you can educate people on those being important to your business, and you can help people understand how to exhibit them in different ways as it makes sense for your company. But those aren't things that like someone with 20 years of retail experience management is going to necessarily bring to the table. So becoming a little bit more creative and flexible about what you're requiring when you hire. I think with EOS, one of the things you do very early on in implementing is come up with the core values of your business. And these aren't supposed to be aspirational. These are supposed to be things that you and your highest performers already possess.
Mm.
And then what you do is you actually look at every single one of your current employees and you say, does this person exhibit core value A all of the time, some of the time, or never? And you kind of have this matrix that you build out. It's actually called the people analyzer, which I think is a little bit of a harsh name, but like
But
that's
I
what
love it though.
yeah. So it kind of puts everything in black and white. And then what you're able to do is take that information to your employees and say, hey, listen, like we're implementing this. Here are our core values. These are why they're so important to us. This is how we exhibit these regularly. And here's where we think you're doing really great. Like we see you doing X, Y, and Z. Here's where we think you could use a little bit of work. And so it gives you the opportunity to actually help coach an employee through becoming better in the areas where they're not doing so great. And if you can get them to sort of up their game in those core value areas, they may wind up becoming a right person. Especially if they are actually doing their job and they're just like a complainer, again, they're not exhibiting the values that you want, but you know that they have the tangible skills. So I think that's something that can be kind of an interesting exercise for our business when you're not 100% sure
I
where you stand
love
with
that.
all people.
I love
Yeah.
it also because it takes away, because they have it so specific,
Yeah.
it takes away a lot of the emotion part of it that I
Yes.
think a lot of people just in general as
Yep.
managers, like you do get emotionally attached, or you have a very strong emotion that person sucks and you want them out. Like, but I think it takes that out and it makes you look at the employer, the situation very objectively.
Exactly. It is 100% about being objective. I think, especially in an entrepreneurial business, emotion runs really high and subjective. How many times do you hear people go, my gut says we should do this? And you're like, oh my gosh, my gut says it's time for lunch. I want to see the numbers that tell me when we need to be doing this, or the data that shows me we need to be doing this. So I think the more things we can do to make the processes in the business objective, it's just easier for everyone. It's so much less stressful to have a conversation over something that's in black and white than it is to have something intangible. And with the core values, it's a process that is done with the leadership team. So there is going to be debate between that core group of people, but by the time you get to the people analyzer stage, the leadership team has already agreed on those values. So you've already got that sort of like, we're in this together. This is what we believe are the most important things. And now we're going to look at our teams. So that also, it kind of gives you that, it gives you like that foundation. It gives you that sort of backup that we're all in this together.
That's huge. And there's somebody already that I feel like I need to send them to you. But so say somebody is a brand new store owner and they have multiple locations and they've never managed employees and now they are managed. Is this something that is advisable for somebody in this situation where I've never managed people and all of a sudden now I'm managing a bunch of basically young kids like that are there, that are showing up every day, and some are great, some are not so great. But is this one of those things where somebody's a brand new owner could come to you, where they will have, it will give them more management strength in the sense of understanding these are key values, this is how to have employee conversations? Like, is this something that a brand new manager or owner would come to you with, that has zero knowledge of running multiple employee locations?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that could be valuable. I mean, it's not a, it's like a management training class. It's not there to help teach someone how to lead. But what it does do is another component, I'm like sharing all the tools, but another component is called the accountability chart. And it's different than an org chart. The accountability chart is designed to show all of the major seats in your business, and then what the top kind of like 5 responsibilities are of each of those seats. And then that's where I mentioned earlier, right people, right seats. You want to make sure that you've got the right person in each of those, and that they are aware of the responsibilities that fall under that seat. This is where someone who's in a management role that may not be an experienced people manager could say, hey, I have managing people in my seat, and this isn't something I've experienced with. So that kind of opens up the opportunity to say, hey, I need some training. I need some sort of consulting, and maybe like I need a consultant, or I need some sort of management coach, or I'm responsible for this, but I don't necessarily have to do it. Maybe I'm bringing someone else in that's going to handle the people management, because we are not all people managers. And I think that that's really important to understand. So you got into this position for something. Why did you take this role to manage these multiple stores? If you want to learn to be a people manager, wonderful. But if you don't, and you don't think that that's something that you're going to have the passion for, or the ability to do, then by all means, get the right person in there and free yourself up to do the things that you love to do, that you're really good at. No one needs a bad people manager. That doesn't benefit anybody.
No, and I think that I think a lot of people jump into having businesses and don't think through, when you get to a multi-store location situation, and now it's like all kinds of personalities and all kinds of attitudes and all kinds of, all of that. It's a lot. And I feel for, sometimes it's like where I'm listening to you talk about this, it's like just the structure alone, I feel like is what somebody brand new, or somebody that's struggling with, running their even single location, like just the structure alone, it's like, oh my God, just getting everybody on the same page is huge.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would love to see, and it's like I almost want to develop like my own version of like a light version, where I can help a solo entrepreneur who wants to scale a business, or maybe it is someone who's just starting their retail shop and they're like, well, I have a very small team right now, but my goal is to scale this. My goal is to open multiple locations. Great. So why don't we go through this process now, when you are still a small team? These people may become your leadership team eventually, and you're all on the same page with all of these things already. Do you know the relief you feel once you have all of these things in place and you hire? I'm actually going to be hiring somebody for my team at my day job. Hopefully we'll have the position posted next week. And I'm really excited about being able to interview people and discuss, like, these are our core values. Like, does that sound like you? If these are things you also care about, you could be a really great fit. And kind of giving them that understanding that, like, we do this process. This is our vision for our business. This is where we want to be in 10 years. Like, you're going to come with us on that ride if you feel like it sounds good to you. And so even, being able to start when you're even smaller than that, and putting all these foundations, I mean, it literally to me feels like the foundations of a house. Like, we're going to put a strong foundation in, then we're going to start bringing more people on. So, yeah, it's life-changing for a business owner for sure.
So somebody starting with you, we started talking about it, they read the traction book. And then I apologize if you said this and I didn't register. Do you meet virtually once a week, once a month? And then what does that look like in time frame? Like, how long of a commitment does it take or require for somebody to be able to grasp the system?
Yeah. So typically, after the 90-minute meeting, if they're interested in moving forward with me as their implementer, we'll schedule their kind of first implementation day. There's 3 of those, and they're spread out with 30 days in between each day and in between each session. And that gives them the opportunity there's homework. There's literally homework. Like, we're going to go over this. We're spending the day together. We're going to go in depth about the first stages of what you need to do. And then over the next 30 days, you all need to work on these things. When we get back together, we're going to follow up and say, okay, how are you doing on those things? Now we're moving on to the next stage. 30 days later, the next stage. From that point, you've essentially done your first quarter with the process, and we need to have your quarterly meeting, get you set up for your next quarterly. So typically people will do that first implementation, those first 3 sessions with an implementer. Then they'll do quarterly meetings, and they'll do an annual meeting. Most businesses, I would say average businesses, stick with an implementer for about 2 years. And then it's almost like you graduate. So you've gone through 2 full cycles of quarterly meetings and annual planning. There are businesses that stay on for years. They just love having that additional person there. That's an option. So, but it's typically for those kind of bigger planning. Let's see how the previous quarter went. Let's get you on track to make sure you're setting the right goals, the right milestones for the next quarter, always keeping an eye on that 1 year, always keeping an eye on our 3-year, etc.
So what does your dream client look like?
Oh my gosh. I think my dream client is someone who they have the business. They've been doing it for a few years. They've been running it for a few years, and they've got this kind of core team that's grown with them a bit. They've expanded, and things have sort of gotten a little out of control. They're feeling just like, what happened? Like, I had the reins, I had this, and now I feel like we're all just spinning in different directions. We're disconnected, but we want to be better. We're not ready to give up on this business. Like, we're looking for the thing that's really going to kind of help us get our act together again and get over this hump. There's another, I don't think it's a business operating system, but it's another a guy that I follow who has some kind of coaching, and I can't remember his name, but he has a thing where he talks about the whitewater phase of your business. And that is exactly, to me, what it is. It's like the first part of your business is like super fun and it's exciting and we're innovating and we're growing and it's great. Then you hit whitewater and it's like the rapids, and we're all rowing different ways because nobody knows what the heck they're doing. And if we can just get through this part, if we can all get on the same page and row in the same direction, we're going to get through the rapids and we're going to be back on the calm water again. And I just love the idea of being with a team that, like, they really want to get better. They're ready to do the work, and, they love what they do. They love their business. They love their clients, and they want to be better for them again.
I love that. So I always ask everybody, the last 2 questions are always, because I know you're a mom and a wife, and you obviously are building a brand, and you still have your main hustle. Where do you find and how do you find balance?
I think that is such a great question. And I actually just asked at my day job, I asked this question to our clients earlier today, which is really funny. Because I said, it's like, you're juggling so many things, and like, how do you keep yourself sane? So honestly, I would say for me, hot yoga is one of my weekly rituals. I go every week. And once I'm no longer also at my day job, my goal is to go more than once a week. But that is that moment where, if you've never done hot yoga before, it's like my entire brain has to shut down because I have to focus so hard on what I'm doing. And like, I'm sweating, and it's
so hard.
Sane. So you're like, I can't worry about the email I forgot to send or the, lunch I need to make for tomorrow. Like, I am just here. This is my hour. I also love gardening, and I love to draw. So those are kind of the things I do. And my husband is extremely 1,000% supportive of me and has been a humongous help over the course of all of this. So I could not do it without him. I want to give him that shout out.
Amazing. That's my husband as well. Like, I have to say, like, kudos to the husbands and the dads that really support their wives, that are, going out and, testing waters they've never been in, and spending time away from their family in order to ultimately, at the end of the day, build a brand. And it's like, good for your husband. I love that. I love hearing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then my other question is, what is your advice to somebody that is starting their own business, but yet still has their main hustle?
I think you have to be willing to um, take the time to figure out what it is you really want. I've been hustling for, I would say, a couple of years now, and my business has morphed over that time. And I think it's about realizing that you have the permission to change your mind, to shift directions. If something feels like it's not the right thing anymore, don't, feel bad about it. Don't, feel like you can't announce it to the world. Have a support system around you that is there for you, no matter how crazy they think that you are. And, just keep at it. I think, like, I just know that this is the right thing for me now. And it took me a while to get to that point, but it's like, I feel it. I feel now what other people feel. So find a support system and just go for it.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so excited for people to listen to this because, like I said, like I honestly originally the intent for the podcast was interviewing retailers, wholesalers, and hustlers. And it somehow along the way, I've realized that retailers need more tools, and there's so many things out there that I feel like retailers are in their own bubble and they have their head down, and it's like it's very all consuming. And I feel like this is my opportunity to bring some of these amazing and the amazing women that I met at UPP. It's like,
Oh my
like
gosh.
all of them. It's like, it's so important for everyone to be able to hear these options and what's out there and what's available to grow your business, to grow yourself. Like so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here. I really appreciate it.
I really, really appreciate the invitation. It's been so great chatting with you. And I'm so grateful that I got the chance to meet you at UPP. So,
And then, okay, tell everybody, we'll have the show in the notes in the show, but tell everybody about how they can get a hold of you and your Instagram handle, etc.
yeah, so I do have a website. It's lauramcdowellcreative.com. And then I'm on Instagram at lauramcdowell.creative. And I'm also on TikTok at Laura McDowell Creative as well. So
Thank you. Thank you. We'll have everything in the notes. We're also going to list the traction book as well, and hopefully get everybody on board with this.